Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 5:30, and I will call this regular meeting of the Burnsville City Council to order. It is our tradition to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have announcements for all of our upcoming meetings, and then we also have a presentation this evening from the Burnsville Community Foundation. But the announcements have to do with all of our upcoming meetings. Regular council meetings are scheduled for Tuesday, July 3rd. That meeting is canceled, but we will have a meeting on Tuesday, July 17th at 5:30 p.m. We have a work session that's also scheduled for Tuesday, July 10th at 5:30 p.m. And we have a special EDA, and that's the Economic Development Authority and Economic Development Commission joint session scheduled for Wednesday, July 18th at 6:30 p.m. and Wednesday, July 25th at 6:30 p.m. All meetings are held here in the council chambers. And now we have a presentation. Mr. Ed Del Moro of the Burnsville Community Foundation is presenting the annual partnership and check to the cities. Mr. Del Moro, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. It's my annual appearance. I'm like the groundhog, but the shadow, the outcome will be the same regardless. Believe it or not, this is the 19th consecutive year that I've had the pleasure of representing the Burnsville Community Foundation for this event. Oh, including tonight's check, that's over $500,000 that the sponsors in this city have contributed toward the lighting for the winter lighting program. Pretty proud of it. This year, the 20th year, is the renewal of the Snowflake sponsorships also, so anticipate a phone call from Bryce Halper or somebody.
Yeah.
But once again, I'm very pleased and proud to present to the city a check for $35,000 from the Burnsville Community Foundation to cover last year's lighting.
So do you want to turn around and they're going to take a
Oh,
picture?
okay.
And council, would you?
We got a couple more members up here. Come
yeah.
on up, guys.
Yeah. Everybody?
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you so much. And thank you very much, Ed.
My pleasure, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Leave that one
Now,
with
do
you.
you want me to, we'll keep this here?
Sure. Can you have
Okay,
this?
I got it, yes, I'll
Excellent.
give it to Dana.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're still a seat again.
And now we move on to citizens' comments. This is the opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the council on an item that is not on our printed agenda and not an application form that will be coming before us at a future date. Is there anyone who wishes to address the council? Anyone who wishes to address the council? Seeing no one, we will move on. The next item is additions to the final agenda, and this is for emergency items only. Ms. Hardy, are there any emergency items to come before the body this evening?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Okay, members of the council? Okay, thank you. We move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a group of items that's considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. However, anyone in the audience can pull an item from the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote. Is there anyone who wishes to pull an item from the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote? Ms. Hardy?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Members of the council? Okay, may I have a motion, please, to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Councilmember Gustafson makes the motion, second by Councilmember Keely. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Thank you. We are at the regular agenda, and the first item is item number 5. This is a public hearing. This is a resolution approving the vacation of Arthur Terrace right-of-way and easement dedicated in Ridge's 11th edition. Presenting this evening is our Public Works Director, Mr. Ryan Peterson. Mr. Peterson, good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for having me tonight. This is a vacation easement, as you said, for some easements and right-of-way. This is directly related with a project that you just approved for an expansion to the Park Nicollet Clinic. So the location of the existing platted land is identified in red on this map. The existing Park Nicollet Clinic and parking ramp is right in this area, right for Fairview Drive and Nicollet Avenue. All the easements that are highlighted here in gray are to be vacated along with this stretch of Arthur Terrace roadway. They'll all be replatted with the new plat that was just approved, and the homes that are up here will be removed, so we don't need the right-of-way to provide that public service at this point. The city doesn't have any utility needs or right-of-way needs for the land, but there are 2 private utility owners who do currently have facilities there, the CenterPoint Energy and Frontier Communications. So we've added a condition to the resolution that they will be made whole, or that Park Nicollet will pay for the relocations. So if you approve the resolution, it will include that condition. So with that, this is a public hearing, and I'd stand for any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Peterson? And it sounds like for this particular one with Frontier and CenterPoint Energy, you all have worked all of those issues out with them so that the condition is all right also with Park Nicollet.
All I can say is Park Nicollet has been
Yeah.
made aware of the situation. And relocations on huge projects like this
Yeah.
are common.
Yeah, and they all know.
Yep.
They need the
gas.
They need the gas, and they need
communications.
telephone
Yep.
communications. Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to address the council on this issue? The public hearing is open, and anyone who wishes to address the council. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. Members of the council, your pleasure.
Move to approve.
Councilmember Schultz makes the motion.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Keely. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Peterson. The next item is also a public hearing, and this is to approve a reseller's license for the Modern Sportsman located at 3541 County Road 42 West. Ms. Collins, our city clerk, is presenting. Ms. Collins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. The Modern Sportsman is a gun shop and shooting range that also buys and sells used firearms. The used firearm sales sales are subject to the laws concerning the sale of secondhand goods. An investigation has been conducted on the principal involved, and no reason was found to deny the license. This is a public hearing. I stand for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Collins? Thank you. This is a public hearing, open to public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Anyone who wishes to speak to this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Members of the council?
No reason not to approve. I would move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Keely makes the motion, second by Councilmember Coughlin. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries.
Madam Mayor, I believe
Yes.
the business is open. This secondhand license allows them to then conduct secondhand business, but I believe they had their grand opening and they're open for the firing range and other activities already, correct?
Yeah, I believe that they have
I was out of
already
town
done
for
all
that.
of that. Yes, this is
I
in the
missed the
old
grand
Abdallah
opening.
site.
Correct.
It's in the Abdallah site, so yeah, it's been done. Yeah,
Thank you.
because they came through for,
Yep.
yes. All right, thank you. Item number 7, and this is to approve an application for Roars Companies for preliminary plat a zoning amendment from B1 to B1 PUD and concept and development stage PUD for a 134-unit senior living building. Concept stage PUD for a 15,000 square foot medical office building located southeast of Grand Avenue and north of 145th Street East. And we're asked to adopt the ordinance and the findings of fact. Ms. Regina Dean, our planner, is presenting. Ms. Dean, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. The site is located generally east of 35E and south of 42, County Road 42. The site's currently vacant and approximately 6 acres. Site is zone B1 and guided business. You may have remembered just a couple months ago, a concept came forward during a work session, and there was general consensus for support of the project. The project includes 15,000 square feet of conceptual office, 1 story, and then a 4-story senior living building, which consists of active senior living, memory care, and assisted living. The Planning Commission, or here's an example of the exterior elevations. The Planning Commission did recommend approval 3-1. I'm before you tonight because there was a dissenting vote. There's quite the discussion on the architecture of the proposed building. The applicant was requesting a deviation from city code to allow greater than 50% fiber cement lap siding. Condition number 2 is referenced into the recommendations. Staff was asking the applicant to meet city code, and that's referenced there. The applicant is in the audience. I do want to make the council aware, and they do want to speak to condition number 2. As stated before, there was quite the discussion, however, with our planning commission. Staff did give some examples of how the building could be revised to meet city code, or to perhaps transfer the materials from perhaps the east side of the building, have that be over the 50% siding requirement, and then increase in some spots brick or stone in other elevations. Planning Commission, however, decided to pursue what's outlined in our city code. With that, if there's certainly any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. Again, the applicant is in the audience.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Dean?
From the applicant. Excuse me, hear from the applicant.
So you don't have any questions for Ms. Dean? Okay. Thank you very much. Just be ready for any additional questions. Thank you so much. And the applicant wishes to speak, Mr. Rohr?
Good evening. I'm
evening.
Jonathan Adam with Silverstone Realty. I'm actually here on behalf of Rohr's Companies. Jeff Cook is on his way. He just texted me and said he's going to be here in 2 minutes. So we appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to bringing this project to Burnsville. During the Planning Commission meeting, we did hear and have some conversation about items number 2 and 3. Item number 2, I'll skip to item number 3 first, actually. The exterior elevations should meet 25% of the glass requirement, and we do meet that at this point. So we do have a revision in our plans that we can present to you and have sent to Ms. Dean, showing that we do comply with that 25%. Item number 2, we have made also some revisions based on comments from both the public and from the Planning Commission. And I'm going to invite the architect to come up, though, and talk about those revisions, as she can educate you on that much better than myself.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. Kim Behrens with Cost Wilson Architects. Do you have the graphic of the most recent elevations for us to look at? So you can see in the main entry, we've increased the stone around the main entry, which was a requirement of the zoning district to make sure that we used a high-class material at the entry to 3 stories instead of 2. We've also increased the amount of panel siding, which is also considered a higher class of material, around the building. If you go to the next one, you can see on the south side of the building, we've added the stone at the highlighted bay areas as well. The calculations have created the ability for us to be under 50% lap siding if you look at the building as a whole.
Ms. Dean, are they in compliance with the code?
The way the city code reads, it's 50% per building wall facade or elevation. So currently, based off of their proposed plans, and we just received these a couple of days ago, and haven't had time to fully digest everything, but from what I can tell, the north elevation as well as the center, or the courtyard south elevation and the courtyard north elevation appeared to not be in compliance with our city code.
So one of the things in really looking through the whole application, from my point of view, you've asked for a lot of deviations. And our staff has looked at all of that and have worked with you. And we've also, because you asked for the building to be workable with your finances, we've allowed you to go taller. So it just seems to me that it would be appropriate for you to meet the code for all of the materials. We've given you a lot, and we'd ask that you do the same. This is a product that speaks to who you are in our community. I've gone out and looked at what you have in Richfield, and I think you can do the same for Burnsville. Yes. Councilmember Schultz.
So question to staff, does the difference in building materials affect safety whatsoever?
From a planning and zoning standpoint, that's not something that we would evaluate. It goes to building code requirements.
Okay. For our guest, how much does this add to your costs to bring it to this level of compliance? And if you were to fully comply, do you have an estimate of how much that would raise the cost of your building?
Your Honor, council members, apologies. Jeff Cook with
Yes.
Roars Companies. Do I need to state my address
Good
too?
evening. No, it's okay, Mr. Cook. I think we have it.
Okay.
Yes, thank you,
Perfect.
and welcome.
Apologies. So yeah, we've worked extensively with our architect, Scott Wilson, to look at some of the expenses. And from what we've seen, just the dollar per square foot is typically, cement board is typically around $8 to $9 per square foot. Rock like this is anywhere, rock or brick is around the $25 per square foot. So overall project impact is around $100,000. With the planning commission feedback, we took that, we heard the neighborhood concern, we updated the elevations to the south to make it more appealing. And we feel we're in compliance with the overall city code, or with the comments that we received from the planning commission, which was that they would want us to meet 50% of the overall project to be 50% or less to be of the cement lap siding. So we believe we're presenting to you a plan that accommodates that and accommodates a collaboration of the neighborhood feedback, planning commission's feedback, as well as staff's feedback.
Okay, Councilmember Gustafson?
When you built the building in Richfield, did you receive any subsidies from the city?
We did. We purchased the land directly from the city, so in terms of the fixed land cost to start out from, we start out at a much lower price point just from a land cost perspective. As well, we received a TIF package from the city of Richfield to spur economic development and investment in their city, because they understand obviously the economic impact that turning a vacant, bare piece of land into a facility that not only meets the needs of the community with their aging population, which we have identified a great need in the city of Burnsville, but also delivers a nice product that fits in well. But we were able to do that with economic incentives of both a lower land cost basis as well as TIF funding through the city. And as the Planning Commission pointed out last week, they understand the difficulty of this topography of the site. I mean, we're talking about 40 to 50 feet of fall from north or from east to west, and there's a lot of land work that has to go into that, and of which we're not even accommodating or putting into that. We're just basically asking for collaboration from the city. That was the intent of Planning Commission's feedback last week, to collaborate as a development along with the neighborhood, taking into their concerns as well as the city's concerns. And we feel the plan we're putting forth in front of you accomplishes that, because we have added considerable cost by adding this rock.
A quick follow-up, are you asking for any subsidies from the city of Burnsville?
We are not. We're attempting to do this all in-house to meet the needs for the city of the aging population.
Thank you.
Councilmember Schultz?
The building as you have designed it right now, do you believe it is an attractive building, or do you believe it is an ugly building?
We believe it's an attractive building that not only the aesthetics work really well, there's enough definition between the use of materials. We feel we've done really well to accommodate the staff's feedback of, not just one flat face of building, but we have bump outs, bump ins to give visual appeal, as well as the quality of materials that we're using are, not just like a vinyl product, which is usually breaks down sooner. It's a longer lasting product.
Councilmember Coughlin?
Well, for me, this is a tough question, but so I kind of go back to my general philosophy, and the philosophy is that once you open the door, and for one, then you open the door for all. And then council would have to decide building by building for exceptions. So for that reason, I will agree with the mayor that that you need to comply with the ordinance as written at this time.
Councilmember Keeley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, first of all, thanks for bringing this project to Burnsville. This land has been vacant for a long time. I don't know if it necessarily qualifies the same way that the vacant lot in Richfield did, which they put TIF behind. And I'm sympathetic, and I understand where Councilmember Coughlin and Councilmember Schultz are coming from an investment in bringing a good quality product, a good looking product, et cetera, et cetera. To Councilmember Coughlin's concerns, we deal with that with every single project. And it seems we get the majority of the way through meeting our ordinance and codes and et cetera. And then there's always, every project has this a little bit of give and take, right? Or a little more green space, give you a little this, to really ultimately make the deal work. And for the 12 years I've been sitting here, or 11 and a half years, it seems like that happens almost every single time. There's never a situation where it just, I'm sure there have been, I don't remember very many of them, but there's been some, that just fly through and we don't really see much of it because the project at situation just makes it real easy for someone to build to code, build the specifications, and there's really nothing to it. Your situation with the land, the slope, and those challenges, and obviously making it a beautiful product so the neighborhood, and I notice there's some neighbors here tonight, can feel good about the quality of investment that's being made because they've put money in their homes and they want other things built around them to reflect a good quality product. It's hard in these renderings to know really what this is going to look like when it's built. Because in a drawing versus real life, there's always a little difference. Like the dark tone might be a little lighter, or a light tone on here might come off a little darker. When you see it in person, it always comes off a little differently. It's like, graphic design versus printed, and then see what it looks like after it's printed or created. I like the product. I think I'm very happy with what you have presented and what you've done in response to the neighborhood and the Planning Commission and staff as far as make it a good looking product, give it some dimension, some depth. some design intrinsics that makes it a more attractive product. And that's always in the finishing, right? The details in the finishing, what make the square block suddenly look really attractive. So I think if I ask this question, we've probably done similar types of negotiating with some give and take, whether it's parking stalls, green space, footprint, materials. And the trend of this council over the last year or so has been a little more open-minded on materials, a little bit more open-minded on design, because the way our code was written for a long time, if a person wanted to open a sort of a nightclub theme restaurant or a restaurant with an industrial theme using a lot of metal and, materials that wasn't a brick, stucco, siding, they couldn't do it. And because our ordinances just weren't written to accommodate diversity in design. And so as in the spirit of where we're going, and I think it's the right direction to loosen things up, to allow more creativity to come in for design, and the fact that I recognize you made a statement, all in, you're under the 50% when you look at the project in its entirety. It wasn't before, and it is now, so you've moved in that area. Our ordinance may be written to its every single wall, which to me, every time we go through a project, we learn something about our ordinance that we didn't always know, or that's just not really always omnipresent, and that concerns me. So, okay, now we have to take a look at that part of I think we ought to take a look at that part of our ordinance and go, is that really very friendly? Is that going to invite investment, or is that going to retard investment? And how does that compete with other cities? I don't know how the city of Apple Valley and Lakeville and Savage and Rosemont, how their ordinance is written with relationship to that. But if we find that we look around and find out that maybe we're a little too tight and we need to be a little more flexible in that area because we can get really great looking products if we are, and that we cause problems if we're not, then that's our job at the council to make those changes and invite more business and more investment. So I'm okay with the project as presented. I appreciate you moving more and making the 50% number as far as the siding. And overall, it's a great looking product. And so thank you for the investment. I'm okay with it as presented.
Councilmember Schultz?
Yes, I completely understand Councilmember Coughlin's view on this, and I would also agree that this is probably an area that council needs to look at in greater detail. I believe we may need to be doing some adjustments on what is written, and these things do kind of highlight that. I have no problem with this, but then again, I appreciate the direction the council is moving on these things. We've done it in residential. We've started to do it on, business. But I firmly believe that unless things enter into a safety concern, like, I'm not an architect. I'm not a designer. And for me to make decisions on things that are really simply very subjective aesthetics, I think we need to be exiting out of that more. That's not a place for government to be involved.
Councilmember Gustafson?
Twice a month, I spend my Mondays watching our planning commission at home, which is a much safer place to watch them at. And listening what I heard last week, I think you have more than complied with what they were told. You came back with a nice product here, which I agree with. I do have a question, though. Were they asking for a height variance?
So, if I may.
Yes. Ms. Dean?
Yep, under city code, by right, one is allowed to go up to 25 feet in this particular zoning district. Anything over 25 feet is a trigger for a conditional use permit request. In this case, we're treating it as a planned unit development deviation, and they are proposing to go approximately 51 feet tall.
I missed that, so I apologize. I was kind of surprised when I heard that. But that being said, I agree with a couple of my fellow council members. I think it's a good project. We're trying to be more inviting to developers in our city. We've opened our doors up. We kind of made that announcement a year and a half ago, And I think we're holding true to our word. We have to make it entry to the city a lot better if we're ever going to expand our tax base and create the environment we need out here for our citizens. So after our mayor calls for a motion, we can go from there.
I think we need to open it up, don't we?
Councilmember Keely.
Just one quick comment. Question, what was the original plan or the zoning and vision for what could have gone up had something been done under the previous zoning?
Well, we did approve a PUD for a mixed-use integrated building before, and it was a condominium. So you want to proceed with that, Ms. Dean?
Yeah, how high was it? Was it similar in size or structure or, that kind of thing? In other words, with what's going in there today, how does that really deviate from what was already approved and able to go in there?
So in, I believe, 2004, there was an approval for a condo apartments, multi-story, I believe 4-story, mixed-use development. That was later rescinded in 2006. So the zoning, the underlying zoning's B1, which does allow for office-type uses, assisted living with conditional use permit, in this case a PUD, professional-type businesses. So there's a series of different uses that could go there. This particular request, as you saw during work session, and today before you is for the professional medical office building and what we see here today with the senior building.
Thank you. It sounds like, other than that professional building as a separate building, what is being proposed today might be architecturally slightly different, but it was 4 stories back then, and so a product somewhat of this size and magnitude could very well have been built back in 2004 if that had gone forward and would have been on that property today. But for it being pulled or nothing going forward and then sat empty and since then.
Councilmember, that's correct. And since then, we have evaluated our architectural materials as well to be more flexible.
Yeah.
As soon as just the past year, we went through our business zoning districts and looked at, which this is, and looked through the acceptable materials, what's allowed as a sort of high-quality material, and then what's that limited category. We did spend a lot of consultant dollars on that, a lot of review time, not only by our planning commission, but by council as well. So I just wanted to remind everyone of that this has been on the eyes of our policymakers for some time in recent times.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Coughlin.
I just also want to go on the record that I agree that we should revisit this ordinance because, again, just the way my mind works, if we have an ordinance that says A, B, C, D, then I'm inclined to apply A, B, C, D. But if we, so that people are aware. But if we have a more flexible ordinance, as has been suggested or something, on more of a case-by-case, then this makes sense. And I'd be amenable to that. And I'm, similar thinking to Councilmember Schultz in the sense that I am not an architect. I don't look at aesthetics. I just follow what the rule is and proposal. But if the rule is modified such that we then can apply different standards, that would make sense to me. Thanks.
Ms. Faulkner, can you speak to the previous application that was before us? And then, of course, the recession hit, and of course, they didn't go forward with it. And then where we are at with regard to the materials, because we go through materials often, and this is an improvement from the last rendition of materials for these kinds of buildings in the business district.
Well, as Ms. Dean spoke, the previous application was approved for a multi-story condo building with integrated mixed use, as you've also noted, Mayor. That application was rescinded. That was an intentional take-back from the council because it was never built. So it wasn't that could ever be built again once that was rescinded. So it goes back to what the zoning ordinance calls for. Regarding the materials, as Ms. Dean said, we did just do a review of that, and this proposal before you is an improvement from what the Planning Commission saw. As you know, staff's recommendation is consistent with what the Planning Commission is recommending to you. If you want to go back and look at that, we certainly can add that to their work plan again and work that cost into the budget to do a re-review. And I think we should have a serious discussion about what this council wants for materials, because we just made the change to be more flexible, and we are, and here we have an application, and I'm hearing you say it's not flexible enough. And so this was something that the Planning Commission reviewed and you approved. So I think before we go down that road, I would like to know from you as a group what your expectation and outcome is, so we can get to the end game without having to keep coming back. It's expensive, it takes time to come back, so we need to hit that mark the first time.
Councilmember Gustafson.
I know we did a review on materials and that, but I was a little surprised by the ordinance calls for all four sides to be equal. That way, that kind of threw me off a little bit. And that's, I'd like to really talk about more of that type of thing, because I think what they presented overall meets the spirit of what we thought the ordinance was. So we just need to refine it a bit more. And if it costs a little more, then it costs money to get it right, and we should get it right, because we don't want to stop development in this city.
I'm not here to argue with you, I'm just letting you know we can do this, and this is how we can get, and this is where I would like us to be for efficiency, so.
Yeah. So you had just sent in the new revisions. So from your perspective, that you've met the spirit of the ordinance and the code. So what I'm trying to do is to listen to our residents. And when you look at the side of the building, because we just did that with the townhomes that are in the heart of the city, where you've got vertical and lap siding. And this is it's a cheaper product than the stone and all of the others that were listed, correct?
Correct.
So when you look at that, are you taking that all the way down as the code speaks to, or are you just? Because I can't see it. And so for me, I too am not an architect, but I know what looks good, and I know what the products are like in other cities, and Burnsville deserves high-quality product as well. And from the way that I look at it, you as an architect, this is a signature on your art. And if it doesn't look good, and people say, oh, who built that building? And we'll tell them who, and it doesn't. It has something to do with your brand, I would believe. And it appears to me with everything that has been done, I look at all of the deviations you requested, and our staff worked with you on all of those deviations. And certainly I understand that you bought a land from Richfield at a discounted rate, but this is Burnsville, and I appreciate that you brought this product here. And I appreciate that you chose Burnsville. And I appreciate that the product that you have before us is an appealing project, and it is consistent with our residential area with the roof line and so forth. So I'm going to ask Ms. Dean and Ms. Faulkner, when you hear what they have said, how does this work with our code and ordinance when it's looking at 50% overall of the building? Now, does our code speak directly to just each side?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the code does speak to each side, and their architect gave, I think, a quick run-through of the numbers, and it doesn't meet it on 2 of the sides, is my understanding. 3 of the sides, it does not meet it. But what I'm also hearing, if I can, is that 3 council members
Yep.
don't find problems with that. So
Yeah.
if this is to be approved, we have to modify the conditions accordingly.
Yeah. And that's what I'm thinking of, because and also the findings of fact.
Correct.
But so, I really appreciate that you brought this product to Burnsville. but I also want Burnsville to not be short on any of this. For me, it's about the quality of product that is in this city. And so I thank you for what you bring to the city and that it will add to our tax base. But I also want developers to know that we work real well. When you look at everything that you wanted to deviate, and our staff worked with you and all of that, I just hope that, this is a small thing, and I think you can make it work. I really do. Councilmember Schultz.
And I also would like to thank staff, because we did notice all the back and forth and how staff worked on this, Planning Commission worked on this. You also worked on this as well. And I trust that you know your business. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in business. And I trust that you would not bring something that you are not pleased with, did not think was effective, and did not think would also be a good business decision, meaning a building that people want to be around, be in, and be happy with. And so I have full faith in that. So thank you very much. Thank you for bringing your project here, and I will be very excited to see it go up.
Councilmember Keeley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just because we've had so much discussion on it, I wanted to get some clarity of some numbers. You said 3 sides didn't meet it, but a side does, and I'm assuming that that side that does meets it by such a large margin that it offsets the other 3, because you had made the statement earlier, you're slightly under 50%. Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
And is it the front elevation that is the side that has in excess of what is required that helps offset the other 3 sides?
I can look at the numbers.
Yeah, we have some
if you have
printouts
to-
if you guys want to see it projected up on the, I think you have an overhead projector if you want to see the revised elevations and quantity breakouts.
It'll also be
there we
good to
go.
know if it's also on the residential side. Is that where you made the adjustments so that our residents who are looking at the building, so the 3 sides that, is this the side where the resident, that faces the residential?
Yep, this is the south side. So the lap siding and shake siding on the south side is reduced to 44%, whereas the windows, the stone, and the panel siding makes up the remainder. Let's see, the north side here, the inside courtyard of the parking area on both the north and south sides are the 3 sides. There's more than 4 sides to the building.
Right.
Those are the 3 sides that are 56 and 55% lap siding, whereas the remainder is made up of stone, panel, and window. The other 2 facades meet the requirement. With, the main entry meeting it, and the back side that faces the church with the high grade also meets it. It does not contain stone on that side, but it does have a significant amount of panel and window.
Thank you.
So basically, the intent was on this, if you can go back there. The north side, there's such an elevation change from where the church sits to where we'll sit that there'll basically be a sight line right here. So even if we added stone here, because they're basically the only people that can see it because there's going to be a retaining wall behind us, we're spending a bunch of money so nobody can see it but these top 2 floors of the church. So the intent was to put the quality product and the quality appearance to where it impacts the neighborhood, to where it impacts the community on the front facade, where you can see it from, when you're staring straight at the building here, we increase it from 2 stories to 3 stories of stone. So the end product is appealing from the outside, but there's obviously a cost approach as well to allocate our dollars where it's going to be most impactful from a visual perspective. And overall, we still, in our minds, meet what the staff intended to, which was that the project meets less than 40 or less than 50% of the lap siding.
Okay, so the east side of the building, that's the one that faces the church?
Correct, right here.
The east side of the building. There's a retaining wall, so the congregants, when they come in, will not see that part of the building?
Correct.
Okay. Now, on the north side, what will County Road 42 see? That's one of the sides that did not meet.
We're 5% off.
You're 5% off.
Question, is that considered the front door,
Councilmember Keely?
side door? I mean, you think of 42 as the main, but
No,
Not really based on
the
the
front door
orientation.
is on the west side where it
Gotcha.
comes in. It's a C.
that's where the
Yeah.
brick around, or the cultured stone is around the doorway? Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Where all the parking is.
Sure.
So this would be the memory care wing. So this would be where the memory care patio and gardens and would be.
Nice.
Yeah, so this is where that garden is. So from County Road 42, what they will see is plantings along with the garden for the memory care.
Correct. And a patio, an outdoor patio.
Councilmember Keely?
Well, thank you. That was very good information to know, to understand the elevation. I mean, it would make absolutely no sense at all to put a whole bunch of brick that no one can see, that's subterranean or sub-view. I think now that we've sort of finished and got a few more details to understand the sight lines and where the quality is being put to meet that 50%, I think this is actually a great example of the spirit of why I would want to change our ordinance. It wouldn't be to give a person the ability to say, I'm going to throw all the good stuff on one side and just do vinyl siding around the other three sides and make it a real lopsided product like that. I think that's maybe why our ordinance is written the way it is to make sure that all sides views, have the right types of materials. But in this case, because of the orientation, the elevation, I'm even more in favor of your project as stated. I think it's a great project, and you've done exactly what I think you needed to do. And I appreciate you coming in out of that 50 overall and putting the quality intrinsics where people will actually be able to see it and enjoy it.
Is that a motion?
So I'm very common sense when I look at these things because I used to do land development myself. So when I look at this and what you have explained to me, where there isn't going to be visual appeal on the east side, so the product will still look nice and it's not going to affect the visual and architectural appeal of the building. And then on the north side, there are other elements that is going to screen, if you will, some of the areas on the bottom of the building. The top of the building will continue to look good. But I want you to understand something. You need to make sure that when you're bringing another project into Burnsville, that it is important for me that the product is of high quality. Burnsville deserves it, not just today, but 10 and 30 years from today, because that's the kind of thing that we need. We have buildings that have been built back in the 70s that we continue to work with today, and some that need a lot of work. So I hope that you're proud of your product as much as we are proud of the kinds of product that we bring into our community. And so we thank you for bringing this in. Thank you for working with our staff. And I ask that you continue to work with them. But with what you have explained with regard to the north and the east elevations of the building, I can vote for it because I look at these things from a common sense point of view. But know that I will be very critical about how products are brought to Burnsville. Councilmember Keely.
Motion to approve project as presented with notes, and I would defer to Ms. Faulkner
Yeah.
to note what those changes
with
are.
the new changes that were brought before staff.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, for certain, condition number 2 should be replaced. That talks about replaced with plans as presented at the 6/19 council meeting.
Yes, okay. And,
Good to me.
and then you will bring back the findings of fact then on a consent agenda with all of the corrections? Or we don't need to do that? You will just make those adjustments, so when I sign it, it'll have the new,
Paragraph 2.
yes, okay.
Correct,
The new
Madam Mayor, that-
language.
That can be in the motion too, that we amend this condition to, as, for plans as presented, 6/19/2018, and to amend the findings of fact accordingly.
Okay,
I'll second that motion.
okay. Councilmember Keely makes the motion, second by Councilmember Gustafson. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Oppose, say nay. And the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you
for
very
the
much.
investment
Thank you
in
very much.
Burnsville.
And thank you for working with our staff, and I look forward to seeing the building as it goes up. Members of the council, there are no other items to come before us this evening, and a motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Coughlin makes the motion,
Second?
second by Councilmember Keely. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. Good night, and thank you for being with us.